What's up YouTube, welcome to our video. In this video we will learn how we can create a browser using WPF with the basic functionality of navigate, backward, forward and history like buttons. So let's begin. So a new project of WPF.NET framework. So first we will make the skeleton of our application using the grid. So inside this grid we need two rows. So grid.raw definitions, and inside this two of the raw definitions. So this will make our two rows, and the first row would be of height, let's say 30 pixels. So this would be for the buttons and the navigation bar and rest of the buttons. And now within this grid I'm gonna create another grid, and this grid would stay in the first row, which is the row 0. And inside this grid we will be needing bunch of columns. So this grid would be consisting of many columns for all of the buttons. Like here there is a back button and a forward button and the rest of the buttons and the bars. So there would be one for each. So we will be needing at least 6 of the column definitions, and the first row would be of width 40 pixels. This would be enough for a button, for the back button, and the next would be for the forward button, and another one for the home button, one for the refresh button, and then a larger column for the navigation bar, which should be, let's say, uh, 10 star or maybe 12 stars, and the last column would be for the history button, which also will be of 40 pixels. Now let's create some buttons and put them under these columns. So button style static resource x static toolbar dot button style key. So this is the easiest way to create a flat button. We need flat buttons here because they look great. So this is the easiest way to create a flat button. Now there would be a width for the button, so when the grid expand it doesn't look awkward, or the buttons would get so big and it would look awkward. So we need a fixed width and a fixed height. So 40 width and a little less height, 30 pixel would do just fine. Their border thickness should be 0, so no borders. And also the font size 18. Let's put a B here for now, so we can tell that this is the backward button. And I will copy and paste this button, change the grid dot column to 1. So one button goes here, and here comes the navigation bar text box, and it would come into the fourth column. But now we can't find our text box, so we need to give it a little margin so we can differ from button and text box. So margin, so a little margin from left and a little margin at the right. This is looking just alright. Now after the button I will also declare a border, and border thickness, and border brush is black. So we can see the border, and this should not be here but outside of the grid. And gray. So it look like this for now. So here are some Unicodes for our buttons. So this is for the backward button, content. So H for history. So it looks like this. And also the text box should have a foreground black, font size 20, and let's keep font weight to semi bold. So now just one control is missing, which is the browser itself, and we will get it through this NuGet package. Search for CefSharp. And you need this WPF version. Install it. Click OK. So the CefSharp WPF is installed. To use the CefSharp browser, you need to make sure that you go into the configuration and add a new configuration with x64 based operating system. Or if you want that you want to create your application for x86, choose x86, but you can choose any CPU. So x64, OK, and click close. So now our application will only run for the x64 bit based operating systems. We also need to declare a piece of information here. This is necessary if we want to declare if we want to use the browser here in the XML file. So now here we will declare the browser, the Chromium browser, and this will stay in the second row, which is the row 1. If this type of error comes, just close the solution and reopen it. You can see that the error is gone, and it now recognizes the Chromium browser perfectly. So we can give it a name. Let's say Chrome. Let's give it an address of google.com. So it automatically loads google.com. Now that our browser runs a default web page which we have given over here, it looks like that we are doing something. So now we will work on the browser's functionality. So view code. We also need to declare a library over here using CefSharp.WPF. So there is another thing that I need to do is, which is to name the text box, because we will be referring to the text boxes very often. So its name should be, let's say, area. So we need two fields over here. One is the list of web pages. So it would be string. It would be of type string, web pages, and a counter which would refer to which page we are currently on. So imagine that we have been navigating to google.com, then YouTube, then yahoo.com. So if we are at yahoo.com, we are currently at index number 2. So it would work like that. So I'm making a method go home. Its task is what to do whenever the home button is clicked. So area.text should be changed to www.google.com, and the Chrome, our browser's name is Chrome dot address should also be equals to, and finally web pages dot add this google.com. So what we are doing here is we are changing the text of the our text area, because whenever we enter a website, the text area of the browser changes to the current site, and we are changing the Chrome address, so the google.com would be loaded, and we have added the google.com to our web pages list, because this is the list of web pages visited since the browser was opened. And after this, now we need to create a method to load the web pages. So we have added this boolean add to list, and its purpose is that when we are using a back and forward button, it should not be counted, these web pages should not be counted in the history of web pages list. That is why I have used this boolean. Now let's create this method. So the first thing is area.text equals to link. So whatever the link we are trying to load, it should be seen in the area text box. The second thing is to load it within the browser. So this is how we will load it in the browser. And the last thing, if add to list, if this is true, then current plus plus and web pages dot add the link. So we have incremented the current because now we will create another method which would be called toggle web pages. If option equals to forward, if the button pressed is forward, and if there is a formula here, web pages dot count minus current minus 1 is not equals to 0, and inside this current plus plus load web pages current and false. And now for the else condition, the else condition is for the backward. It has a formula too, which is, and here we will decrement the current because we are going backward. So now we start connecting the back end with the front end. So this is the backward button. This here is the backward button. I'm making a new click event, and for the forward too, the same event would work. And here I would just say button equals to button sender. This is a way to convert to a precise control. Toggle web pages button dot content dot to string. So it would send the content within the button, which is these forward and backward symbols, which would decide that which condition would work. So this is for our back and forward buttons. And now a click event for our refresh button and another click event for our home button. To refresh a web page, we just need to load the current web page again. So this is how it works. It will reload the web page, and then in the home button we will just gonna copy this and change the current to 0. So the 0 position is for the home page. So now we will also be needing the load event. So here, loaded event, new event, and inside the load event I need to initialize my list of web pages, and then the go home method. It would load the google.com or whatever is set to the home page. Now I also need an event from the text box, which is the key down event. If enter is pressed, then load the web page which is written currently on the text box. So now let us test it out. So this is our browser. I go to youtube.com. Now I'm pressing enter. So it loads the youtube.com, and now the yahoo.com. So now the yahoo.com is loaded. And when I press back, the youtube.com is loaded. Back again, and the google.com. If I press the back again, nothing happens. Forward and forward. And this was the last index, so the pressing it again and again won't work, because we have given the conditions over here. These condition, these formulas would stop the web pages from going uh, below 0 or above the web pages count. Now we just need to create the history. So for the history, I will use a context menu. So inside the button, let's say just menu. And now that we have created the context menu, every time a web page is loaded, it is necessary that it gets added to the context menu. So for that, menu item equals to new menu item, the item dot click. We also need a click event for the item, so I'm just gonna copy this and paste it here and rename it menu click. So menu click equals plus equals to menu click. So for the each web page which is loaded, a menu item would be created and given this click event, and also it would have a header which would be same as the link, and the item should be of width 184 pixels or just 184. See menu or menu dot add dot items dot add, and now we add this item we created here. So for each website, a menu item would be created given this clicked event, given the name of the link, and a width of 184. And now we have to create this histories click event. So this is the history button, click event, new click event, and we also have to disable the mouse right click event, because we don't want to we don't want the context menu to be appeared on the right click. So we will gonna disable this. And to disable an event, disable this mouse right click event, I can say e dot handled equals to true, that we have handled the event and you don't have to do anything. Menu dot placement target equals to, I have to give the history button a name, x name, h button, and I have to say menu dot placement equals to placement dot bottom. These two lines are for the purpose that the context menu would appear below the history button. So it is targeted to the history button and it would appear below it. Now I also have to say menu dot is open equals to true. So this is the property we have to set to true to open the menu dot horizontal offset, and let's make it -155. And the history should be shown only if the web pages dot count is not equals to 0. So it would only open the history context menu if the web pages are greater than 0. Now for the context menu event. So menu item equals to item, menu item, and sender. And now load web pages, and we are giving the items header, and we are giving and in the argument we are giving the items header, which would be the website to be loaded. Now let's check our final browser. So go to youtube.com, microsoft.com, click refresh, go to home page. So everything is working fine, and the history, it is also looking very good. So we have visited these pages, and if I click on one of them like youtube.com, it will load the youtube.com. So the browser is complete and looking good. The only problem here is that we have done nothing to save the history list. So uh, when I close the browser, the history would be gone. So if you want to save the history too, watch the video in the description, which is how to load and save data in Visual Studio. So watch that video and you would learn how to do this. So this is all for the video. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and do subscribe to the channel. See you next time.